Security, escort this gentleman out, please.
Come on, Soda Pop, let's go.
Okay, and again, we are turning to initiating measure 22, and representing the proponent stance tonight is Darrell Solberg, and representing the opponent stance tonight will be Ben Lee. We're going to do the same thing, 3 minutes opening statements, and we'll get to questions, 90 seconds for each answer with 1 minute potential rebuttal. We're going to start with our proponents tonight, so we'll start with you, Mr. Solberg. You have 3 minutes.
Thank you very much to the Chamber and all the sponsors of this. It's a bipartisan initiative that I want to share some information with you about and answer questions. South Dakota Government Accountability and Anti-Corruption Act Initiative. Don Frankenfeld, the former South Dakota Republican legislator, and myself, Darrell Solberg, a former Democratic legislator in South Dakota, are co-chairman of IM22. Initiative Measure 22 is about reducing the power and the influence of lobbyists, special interests, and big corporations in South Dakota government. Making the voices of ordinary people matter. Democracy is all about more people participating rather than just a few with power and money. Ending unlimited lobbyist gifts, making campaigns more transparent, and holding politicians accountable to all voters, not just the big money people. The reforms of IM22 are straightforward and achievable, and the heart of it is to clean up our government and politics. I find a lot of people in South Dakota that I talk to find it appalling that South Dakota is the only state that allows lobbyists unlimited gift giving to politicians. Now, the policy director for government accountability for transparency has been quoted saying, many of the people that are in government, there has been no shortage of political scandals. Alabama House Speaker was convicted of 12 felony accounts. 5 Pennsylvania state representatives were convicted of bribery. Also in New York, they were convicted. There are other scandals, but scandals like these are troubling as both in their substance and their frequency, and have contributed historically to low levels of trust in government. Corruption cases involving public officials leave citizens with a distinct impression that their voices matter less. Even in South Dakota, we are not immune to corruption. EB5, gear up, pay to play. Unfortunately, these happenings have led to murder and suicides, and millions funneled into the pockets of individuals. IM22 also sets up an independent ethics commission, which has subpoena power and would have jurisdiction beyond elections. This is good for the people of South Dakota, for the taxpayers. Vote yes on IM22.
Thank you. And now we will turn to opening remarks from the opponent, Ben Lee, and you'll have 3 minutes.
All right, thanks, and thanks to all of you for hanging in there. It's been a long night. Appreciate those of you in the room and those of you that are still watching online. Thanks to the League of Women Voters and the Sioux Falls Area Chamber for putting this on. Some things in life aren't what they seem to be. When my kids were younger and they'd see a rainbow and it was really bright, they would think that the end of the rainbow was just over the hill or just behind the house next to them, and they would rush off to see if they could find the end of the rainbow. But of course, when they got to where they thought it was, the rainbow wasn't there. And that's because sometimes in life, things aren't what they appear to be. And it's the contention of the folks of the Defeat 22 campaign, the 15 organizations that have joined together to oppose Initiated Measure 22, were of the opinion that Initiated Measure 22 is not what it appears to be. This is a 34-page initiative. It would change more than 70 different parts of the law in South Dakota. The centerpiece of it all is publicly funded campaigns. Publicly funded campaigns is a nice way of saying taxpayer-funded elections. The crux of Initiated Measure 22 means that your tax dollars and my tax dollars would now be used to get politicians elected. We simply think that's not the right use of South Dakota tax dollars. We don't want our tax dollars to be used for attack ads and robocalls at dinner, for postcards, for mailers, and all of those other sorts of things. Those are important tools of the campaign process. We just don't think that the taxpayers should be the folks that are forced to foot the bill. And that's what initiated Measure 22 would do. The proponents say that this would cost $12 million to set up this taxpayer-funded campaign system. We have some questions about the math. I'll save that for later. But let's assume $12 million. It's a fundamental truth that if you want to give money to one project, you have to take it from somewhere else. And in this case, we believe it's going to hurt South Dakota priorities. Things like schools and education, things like public safety and law enforcement. We simply don't want those things to lose out so that politicians can have our tax dollars to get themselves elected. I want to close these opening statements by listing the 15 organizations that are part of the Defeat 22 coalition. The South Dakota Retailers, the South Dakota Chamber of Commerce, Family Heritage Alliance Action, South Dakota Farm Bureau, Concerned Women of America for South Dakota, the South Dakota Co-op, Western Dakota Families, Americans for Prosperity South Dakota, Associated General Contractors, South Dakota Land Improvement Contractors, South Dakota Agribusiness Association, South Dakota Grain and Feed Association, the Minnehaha GOP, and most recently the Sioux Falls Area Chamber of Commerce. They reached the decision to join the Defeat 22 effort after listening to testimony from both the proponents and the opponents. We're proud to stand with those other organizations, and we encourage folks to vote no on Initiated Measure 22. Thank you.
Thank you. We're going to now turn to audience questions. And the first one, as it's gone all night, we'll each get 90 seconds, and then whoever answers first will get a 1-minute rebuttal if you choose to. And we'll do our first question with Mr. Solberg. He'll take the first question first. What have been the results in other states that have established public funding of campaigns?
The result has been favorable because it has increased participation by regular citizens and taken big money and power out of the equation. And the thing about this whole thing is right now in South Dakota, we got an F for integrity. And we are in the top 5 states for corruption. So what we feel is this gives transparency, and as Mr. Mortensen said, we need more transparency in state government, not less. So what we are looking to do here with this is campaign reform, and campaign reform does include democracy credits, and it would cost up to $12 million. Right now, corruption in state government costs over $1,300 per person, whereas this would be limited to $9 per person.
Thank you. Mr. Lee?
Can you repeat the question for me again?
Yes. What have been the results in other states that have established public funding of campaigns?
There are 13 states in the country that currently have publicly funded campaign systems of one sort or another, and the results show that those didn't eliminate corruption. In fact, in Arizona, they passed a law similar to this in 1998. After some court proceedings, it didn't go into effect until the year 2000. In 2004, a gentleman was criminally indicted for misusing $100,000 of these taxpayer-funded campaign funds. He was hiring family members, which was against the law. He was throwing lavish parties. He was doing all of this with taxpayer dollars. In Maine, one of the political parties chose to apply for their democracy credits. I think they had a different name. They didn't have a candidate actually running for office. They pretended that they did so that they could have access to these funds. Publicly funded campaigns, taxpayer-funded elections don't eliminate corruption. They change the funding source, and in this case, the funding source would be our tax dollars.
Thank you. Rebuttal, 1 minute.
Well, we're talking about transparency, and we're talking about eliminating the secret donors. The Koch brothers have come out, as written in USA Today, talking about they had launched a big campaign to fight to keep donors secret. Why do you want to keep donors secret out of the hands and eyes of the public of South Dakota? If there is something going on shady, these people are protected. One of the things that we need in South Dakota is more transparency, less corruption. Again, corruption costs much more than public financing would. But the thing that this bill does is sets up an ethics commission, and it shines sunlight on things in South Dakota, and that will be transparency. Will it eliminate all corruption? Of course not. People can circumvent things to do that.
Thank you. This question will go to Mr. Lee first. Then there were several questions similar. Who selects the ethics committee? Are they voted on by the citizens of South Dakota?
It's an unelected position. I believe there would be 5 members of the Ethics Commission. And one of them would be nominated by one of the presidents of USD, president of South Dakota State, by majority leader, minority leader, and I believe the governor. It would be a system where the Ethics Commission folks would be unelected, they would be appointed, and they wouldn't be held accountable by the legislature. They would essentially be unelected, unaccountable commission. If you read in the 34 pages, it says that they would have the ability to raise the scope of their purview, to hire as many folks as they deem necessary to carry out the function that they want to do. It sounds to me as if it would be a huge government growth. It would be potentially a huge bureaucracy. That's the Ethics Commission as I understand it.
Thank you. Mr. Solberg, 90 seconds.
Okay, the thing that we are finding out here is they don't want this because they don't want to shed a light on what is happening in state government. As I travel around the state of South Dakota, you can simply ask the question, do you feel the people know enough about EB5? Do you feel people know enough about what happened with Gear Up? And we say no. And they say, well, why is that? It's government. It's for the people, by the people. I said it's because South Dakota protects corruption, and they do that by making it hard for people to see what is going on. Lack of transparency, lack of open government. What we need is we need more ordinary people participating, not big money buying our state government.
Thank you. Do you want to rebuttal?
I'll wait for the next question.
All right. Next question, and this will go to Mr. Solberg first. The cap on the fund for this program is $12 million, but that does not allow every registered voter to receive the tax credit. How many voters would actually get to use the credit?
It would be on a first come, first served basis, but it is capped, and they want to keep it affordable. Now, some people will say that we can't afford it because we have to take money from roads, education, bridges, infrastructure. Well, the same people that are saying that are the ones that voted against Medicaid expansion, voted against education increases. They voted against infrastructure funding. These are the people that are against that, but now say they'll take money from that. In last year's fiscal year, we had a $14 million surplus. That $14 million surplus in state government went in to the reserve fund. It will not take money from education. It will not take money from roads and bridges. It will save South Dakota taxpayers money because right now corruption is costing us over $1,000 per individual. And you can see we have not recovered the money from EB5. We don't know where it is. But that was corruption at its finest.
Mr. Lee?
So here's how the Democracy Credit Program would work. Each registered voter would get 2 $50 democracy credits to designate to the campaign of their choice. The program is capped at $12 million, which means that 120,000 registered voters could participate. As of August 1st, there are 530,000 registered voters in the state of South Dakota. That means it would cost $53 million if every registered voter wanted to participate in the Democracy Credit Program. The way this is set up is such that less than 1 out of 4 people could actually participate in the Democracy Credit Program. All of South Dakotans would have their tax dollars going to fund the program. Less than 1 out of 4 could actually participate. In essence, some South Dakotans would be losing twice as it relates to this deal.
Rebuttal, 1 minute.
We know right now that less than 80% of the voters in South Dakota contribute to a political campaign. For what reason? It could be disgruntlement, it could be lack of money. Recently, I read that over 50% of the people in South Dakota live paycheck to paycheck. That means there's not money for campaigns or to support their favorite candidate. Democracy credits give people more opportunity to participate. Takes the money out of the hands of the Koch brothers, who have been coming into South Dakota and putting their wishes on the people of South Dakota with their big money. These are the kinds of things we need to eliminate. And the corruption in South Dakota has been prevalent, and it has cost us taxpayers a great deal of money. IM 22 provides transparency and eliminates corruption.
Thank you. And we have time for sure one more question, maybe two. So this next one will start with you, Mr. Lee. Ethics laws have been proven to work in many states. Prosecutions increased significantly in many states, including New Jersey, which is now number 2 in clean government versus number 49 for South Dakota. Tell us how we can expect this to work here.
I'm not completely sure how it would work here. Again, this measure is 34 pages long. It would change 70 different laws in South Dakota. It appears like it would be a shotgun approach to campaign finance reform rather than trying to take a look at one thing or another thing. It's unclear how it would work in terms of cleaning up corruption. As I mentioned earlier, some states that have tried this didn't have less corruption, they just had differently funded corruption. One thing that we know for certain would happen if this becomes law is that our tax dollars would now be funding politicians to help them get elected. We know nothing else for certain beyond that.
Thank you, Dr.
What we do know is they would set up an independent ethics commission. That independent ethics commission would be able to investigate EB5, would be willing or could be investigative of pay to play or gear up. Right now, what happens in South Dakota, we have the honor system. The perpetrators of these crimes are selecting people to investigate them. That is not transparency. That leads to more corruptive actions because without this law, they are protected from prosecution, charges and prosecution. The people of South Dakota deserve transparency. The people of South Dakota deserve less corruption. 34 pages or not, it's a good law that is going to correct the misfortunes we as residents of South Dakota have at this time. And that is power and greed, lack of transparency, and too much corruption.
Okay, do you want a minute rebuttal?
I'll pass.
All right. I'm looking at, I was going to try to slip one more in, but respecting the time of you all in the audience, we're going to move to closing statements. And we're going to start with our opponent. Mr. Lee, you have 1 minute.
Thank you. We don't always get to choose where our tax dollars go. I think we all have times when we feel like our government spent our tax dollars in ways that didn't suit our wishes. This is a chance for South Dakotans to make a choice on where our tax dollars go. We can either have them go to support South Dakota priorities as they are currently, or they can go to support politicians who want to get themselves elected. Initiated Measure 22 didn't originate in South Dakota. It comes from a group called Represent Us, based out of Massachusetts. This is their bill, it's their funding. We don't need that in South Dakota. We deserve to make a choice on where our tax dollars are spent. And I would encourage you, don't let our tax dollars be spent to help get politicians elected. Help us defeat Initiated Measure 22. Thank you.
Mr. Solberg, 1 minute.
And I take just the opposite. What Initiative Measure 22 does is it encourages more involvement. And we talk about out-of-state dollars coming into South Dakota. The Koch brothers have plowed many, many dollars into South Dakota trying to put their wishes onto our shoulders. Right now, I can't say it enough. South Dakota lacks transparency. South Dakota has way too much corruption. IM 22 may not eliminate corruption, but it will cut down on corruption. And one thing that we find is the opponents of this bill are spreading fears and innuendos. because they want the people to not understand the good of this bill. They want the people to fear this bill and leave the policies and the power in the hands of big money and powerful.
Thank you. We appreciate both of you giving your time and insights tonight. Please join me in thanking them for their participation.
Y'all come back now. Cheers.
What kind of morons run this outfit?